From spaghetti western shimmer to psychedelic folk grooves, Boise's own Cactus Moon isn't just redefining the local sound. They're building a world you can live inside. With their debut album Day for Night on the horizon and new single Anytime turning heads, this duo blends analog soul and cinematic grit in a way that feels as dusty as it is divine. Joining us today are singer-songwriter Chelsea Smith and multi-instrumentalist producer Freeman DeJongh, the pair behind the rising desert folk force that's casting long shadows across the indie landscape. Jake, Chelsea, what's happening? How you doing?
Good morning.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Hey, we're both local in the city of trees here in this vicinity, Treasure Valley, so it's nice to find some people in my backyard who I can chop shop with, and super stoked that I get to have you for a short, brief window here. So again, thank you for joining me today. I want to jump into the whole evolution, if you would, here about Cactus Moon, but before we get into that piece here, let's talk about before Cactus Moon. Like, you guys were both in different arenas, right? Working on your own music before you guys kind of got pulled together. I want to understand where you came from a musical perspective or artist perspective, and what you guys were cooking up beforehand. And you cross paths here. Anybody can start. Who do you want to start with?
Yeah, I can start. I've been a singer-songwriter for many years now. I moved to Boise about 5 years ago, and I lived in Portland and played music there as a solo artist and in bands. And so when I came to Boise, I kind of wanted to put a new band together and started writing some songs and met Jake kind of through the country adjacent scene where he's pretty active.
Gotcha. How about yourself, Jake?
I've been playing guitar since I was maybe like 10 years old or something, and I've been kind of making spooky psychedelic folk music for a long time. It's kind of always been my vein, and I've got a lot of solo recordings out. Put a record out, maybe my last one 2 years ago, and I played guitar and pedal steel for a lot of folks. I lived in New York City for most of my 20s, and mostly kind of did singer-songwriter and guitar player for hire stuff there. Um, did a lot of session work in Southern California last year. And yeah, I do a lot of recordings for a lot of people. Other than being a singer songwriter, I play pedal steel and guitar and synthesizers, and I'm just grateful to be able to contribute any sounds to anyone who asks me to work on something.
Nice. Yeah, a whole entourage of different sounds you're putting together here, which I want to dive into a little bit as well. When I was listening to some of your tracks, I get the sense of kind of old west meets otherworldly dream type of fusion. And
Mhm.
was that something intentionally that you guys were trying to construct, or is it something that kind of naturally emerged from a collaboration between the two of you?
I think it naturally emerged. I don't think we really talked about it at all. I think Chelsea just wrote these really great songs, and I don't really have any. When I listen to something or play something, I usually don't really have too many preconceived ideas. I just listen to the song and play whatever it tells me to play. And so I think it's a very truly organic. We weren't like, oh, let's make us. It's funny because we were talking about like, what genre is this? We don't know, And a lot of people have been saying like this like dusty spaghetti western thing, and it's
Hmm.
definitely, after listening to all of it complete, it has that sound. But that wasn't like, we didn't talk about that. That wasn't like, let's make a spaghetti western surfy sounding folky thing. We just were like, let's just play these songs and record them, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, they kept evolving over, we were kind of playing them live for a couple years. And then when it got time to record, I think we really dug into it and how they should sound versus just kind of like getting ready for the show, which is kind of a different process than like laying a record down. And so we did dig in more, but yeah, I think a lot of it was pretty intuitive, and just kind of going back and forth on what could have the most impact, honestly.
Hmm.
Hmm. I know
Yeah.
the first song that, well, we recorded all the songs as a band, like the drums and the bass, all those tracks in the studio live together, and then did a lot of the instrumentation as overdubs. And obviously we had played some shows before, for a couple of years before that. But the first song I recorded, I think, was Time Traveler, like the one I worked on at my home studio that wasn't kind of with everybody else. And I had written the kind of main part just when we played live, kind of in a practice or something. But it wasn't until after I finished recording that in a certain way that I did that one. And then I think I did Anytime was the next one I did. And after I did both of those songs, I sort of realized like, oh, this is the sound. Now I'm gonna try to chase that sound. Once I recognized what it was, which was that kind of, surfy, cinematic, dreamscape, doubled guitars with layered synthesizers kind of thing. And then from there, I just kind of followed that trail,
Gotcha. Yeah, that's your recipe for it then, huh? Once you figured out a little bit of it. Gotcha. From these two tracks, Gold Standard had Done Wrong to Anytime, your lyrics, they seem to be kind of heavy with reflection and ache almost. How do you, as a duo, like, how do you determine who brings what to the table when you're piecing this together?
She writes all the lyrics.
I've been writing the lyrics. Yeah, I bring some angsty lyrics and a little chord structure, and then I think Jake's really been helping to like flesh out the mood of the whole thing, because something I like about working with Jake is just like the songs, they are complex emotionally. It's not all sad, it's not all happy. It kind of goes through different emotions in the way that we do in a single day, and so like I hope that the lyrics and the like musical leads and things that Jake are adding just kind of like flesh out a larger picture of a complex emotional landscape that isn't just one thing. And that's something I really enjoyed about working together.
Yeah, there's like a huge component of songwriting that that I think is important to consider, and that's that there's a correlation between the mood chords create, harmony, and what the lyrics are saying. Like it, and you want to like really dig into the words and go, oh well, that's kind of a phrase that might like need some tension or a little more flavor, sparkle, or this kind of feeling. And different chords, harmony, music harmony allows you to do that. I remember reading an interview a long time ago with the famous session drummer Jim Keltner, and he was talking about going into a session and asking for the lyrics, and the producer was like, well, you're the drummer, what do you need the lyrics for? And he was like, well, how do you expect me to like play something expressive that is tailored to the song if I don't know where kind of the song is sort of ebbing and flowing and cresting with certain expressions,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I take the lyrics seriously. I know not everybody listens to them or everybody needs them, but for me, that is a huge focal point for my expression. So like the music has to complement that to a degree. And I think there is the tension there that you have to ride the line. Like I think Jake and I are not afraid of like sad, moody music, but you also just don't want to like leave people hanging, right? You got to bring them back and make it energizing and engaging. So try to do it all, if you can.
Yeah. Well, if I could for a second, like dive into some of the lyrics. I mean, you spend so much time investing into the messaging of a song here, and Anytime reminds me of like this magnetic pull to somebody, even when it's messy. What's the story behind that one? What's the personal story that you're punching through?
It's kind of an amalgamation of a few experiences. Watching some friends chase each other around in circles like a ex-husband, ex-wife, who they just can't stand each other, but they are connected and can't pull apart. That was kind of what like was the impetus for that. But then I started reflecting on the ways that's happened in my own relationships. I'm not immune from that either. Like we've all been in that relationship. It could even be a boss, could be someone in your family, someone who's just making you run ragged in circles, and you're doing it, you're trying to keep up. And then you have that moment where you just realize like, this is crazy. I'm done. I'm over this, And so, yeah, I think I just wanted to like lay that bare and just like, I think there's something almost it's vulnerable to just be like, I'm chasing this person and it's not working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I get it. I think all of us that have been in a relationship can attest to it, right? Or relate to it in some shape or form.
So I wanted to capture that frustration of just saying like, I'm showing up over and over again, and this is not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are your thoughts about that, Jake? Can you relate?
I remember when I remember one time we maybe talked about it. I just remember immediately feeling like before, when I usually hear a song for the first time, I don't really hear the lyrics literally, but I feel the energy, like the way they're
Mm-hmm.
being sung, and, little phrases here and there. And I just remember being like, oh, this is like an angsty song. Like there's a lot of just like, yeah, there's definitely like some frustration and anger in here. The song needs to feel like kind of in your face and kind of aggressive, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you feel it in that song. Like it's a pretty aggressive song. Like it's got it really punches hard. It's got a lot of energy. And I remember watching like this Howard Stern, and I think maybe we talked about this. I can't remember. I have like a vague memory of like it, are some of these too intense? And I was like, no. And I just watched this Howard Stern interview. I think it was with like Alice Cooper or Rob Hartford or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Alice Cooper. And he was like talking about songwriting and how like love songs never get old. He's like, I don't like want to hear a song about like save the rainforest. I want to hear a song about like how your girlfriend or your boyfriend like stomped on your heart and you want to kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that was like reaffirming. Like those are the songs I want to hear too. I mean, I want to hear songs about saving the rainforest too. But that was sort of the energy that when I heard that song, I was like, oh, this is like one of those like, this is like an in your face song. It needs to feel like energetic and aggressive and kind of, I mean, because I think you hear it and then you listen to those words and you're like, oh yeah, it's like it's pretty obvious. That's the feeling,
Yeah, absolutely. For this album title that you got coming up here, for Day for Night, right? The simplistic nature of the title, kind of hints at this tension between light and shadows. Like, what is it that you're trying to weave within this thing thematically? Talk to me about the construction of the album as a whole, and if I'm kind of reading into that right with the title itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of themes in the album as a whole, from like travel and sense of home to grief and self sort of self-actualization and resilience. The Day for Night piece is kind of this play on words from the cinematic technique that used to be used in older films more, and now it's kind of used as an aesthetic tool. But they used to have to shoot nighttime scenes during the day because the cameras weren't good enough to shoot at night. And so it became just like a technique that people used out of creativity to make it happen, But then now it's evolved into a technique that people use to communicate something aesthetically. So, I mean, there's this kind of general. I'm a filmmaker. I've made films. I've worked with filmmakers in a lot of capacities. So I think it was like a nod to that creative process of working with what you've got, but also creating illusions and immersive experiences for the audience that they're not sure if it's day or night, and that's how music makes me feel. That you're kind of in a topsy-turvy world. It could be day, it could be night. Everything's a bit of an illusion. And so, there are themes about illusions in the album, and it just felt like, there's a duality there that I really resonate with, and it just emerged as a natural title for the album.
Yeah. The filmmaking piece about it, like I thought I came across that, and I wasn't completely sure of your background in that. I want to touch on that a little bit as well. Like, how has your experience in that lane influenced what you're now doing here musically, sonically?
Yeah, I mean, I started as a singer-songwriter and got into film and video because I was already making music and I wanted to make visuals for my music.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of segued into more traditional storytelling. And then I managed Film Fort, the film festival for Treefort Music Fest, for a number of years, and really got involved in the indie film scene there and made a couple of my own films. I'm kind of getting back to trying to marry the two again, moving forward with more of a stronger focus on music. I'm always really interested and excited when like music and picture exist together and in a way that is like so fundamental that they can't be separated. I think that's really interesting. So, we haven't totally gone there yet with Cactus Moon, but I would love to. I think there's, opportunities on the horizon to do some music videos or to do more film related work with the music. because it's I mean, for me, it's my two loves, so I love to combine them whenever I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even think about this till right now, but I guess it just sounded like it made sense to me. But Cactus Moon, where did the name come up? Where did that come up?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, came up through a conversation with my brother, who's another musical collaborator of mine,
Okay.
and we were just kind of spitballing, and I was, talking about I'm from the Midwest originally, so I've lived out west for about 10 years, and it's like just grown on my heart and in my writing, and so it felt like a natural outgrowth now that I'm here in the desert. And yeah, I'm all about the moon and the shadow side, so it just kind of emerged naturally.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. One thing I was coming across here, I don't know who would describe this, if it was one of you or somebody else that might have been describing you, but something to the effect of Boise's music scene being quietly cinematic. And I want to understand a little bit more about what it's like for you guys to develop an identity in a town that seems like it's still defining its own sound. And granted, things have changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. I mean, I've been here for a while. But you do see some pretty spontaneous and pretty beautiful growth that's happening as a result in the artistic scene. But how are you guys finding yourselves into this whole puzzle here?
I think that something other than living here, because I enjoy my day-to-day life and the landscape and open space and mountains and the desert. Um, Something that I like about living here is that there is like with the scene, there's a freedom, and not that I would ever like let a place dictate this, because I'm
Hmm.
just gonna do whatever I want all the time.
Sure.
Um, but there is a sort of freedom, like versus like so I play pedal steel guitar, and like I played historically and presently still play a lot of very traditional country music, which is definitely like a nostalgic love of mine and has a certain place in my heart. But like if I lived in Nashville, I would have to conform to play a very certain kind of way,
Hmm.
even on those instruments, like when people
Hmm.
hire you for sessions or get together in songwriting. And I'm not like throwing jabs at anybody or anything like that,
Sure.
but like it's definitely like a little more rigid. I mean, there's an expectation to sort of be part of what the contemporary genre demands of people, because it's such a commercially controlled industry. Same thing with maybe places like, like Austin and stuff. The Texas kind of music scene is definitely like its own thing. And it's
Hmm.
because it's sort of a little more aloof and vague here. I mean, there's everything from really traditional country to just like psychedelic, indie, like Youth Lagoon. There's so much good stuff, and it's very diverse. Built to Spill, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so many. Hill Folk Noir is another band that comes to mind. Like it's also different. There's a big bluegrass scene here.
Hmm.
Um, Real rootsy stuff, and also really futuristic stuff, and that's cool. And I think I mean, I know like me as an artist, like I certainly like I like everything. I'm a very open-minded listener. I'll listen to like, I'll listen to Lana Del Rey, Ray Price, Bob Wills, and The Cure and Chris Isaac all in 1 hour. And
Yeah.
that's something that I think is cool about Boise, is that there's a lot of open space, to sort of
Mhm.
not feel like you have to maybe like conform to a genre to go play certain places. There's opportunity to play kind of doing whatever you want. And I mean, I think that that's kind of maybe indicative of like kind of Western culture and Idaho culture too, is
Mhm.
sort of like being able to do your thing and not be worried about it being sort of constrained by other sort of commercial expectations or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a freedom here in expression that, has definitely been helped along by like the scene by Treefork Music Fest and things like that have helped carry us forward and bring in a lot of interesting and exciting art that I think stimulates us here to keep experimenting and iterating. And I really love that like Boise's just supportive and Boise shows up, and if you're doing something cool, people are interested and want to collaborate and stuff. I feel like it's a little more accessible than some of the other cities that I've played in, to Jake's point, that are just a little bit more locked into what this is the scene and this is how it is and do you fit or do you not. I don't feel like we're there in Boise, and it's like it's a good thing.
Yeah. No, literally right before I hopped on the call with you, I was sharing with Jake a little bit that I was on another recording here, another call with an artist from Ohio, and he had recounted a very similar story where his hometown that he was in, they were really developing a lot of great content. This is back in late '90s, right? They were developing a lot of great content, had kind of their squad that was pieced together, very talented people making some waves outside of the area, but they weren't getting any love internally because it just wasn't clicking for some reason. He didn't know why. He ended up moving about an hour away from this location where most of his crew was located, other musicians and whatnot. And the environment was much different. It was much more welcoming. He wasn't feeling boxed into having to perform in a certain way for certain venues, etc., just like you explained. And the brush fire from that was what kind of catapulted them into a new stratosphere in their music. And so I say that to say that I think there's something that is unique about this arena, around this area. And you guys are fortunate, we're all fortunate, right, to be able to have an environment like this that does welcome artistic expression and allows you to be who you are with the music that you create. So I agree with you there, 100%. I want to mention that you do have an album release coming up, right? August 24th at Shrine Social Club. And I want to understand and get your perspective on how you guys are going to translate kind of these layered, spacious recordings into something like intimate or electric in a live environment. Like, how do you guys translate what you're doing in recording, right, into a live set, and how's that going to play out if you could?
Um,
Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
I was going to say that, it's always hard to like, it's always can be difficult task to recreate production in a live setting. And my solution to that is when you play live, you just play with a lot of energy. But also like in the recording of this album, like the way, at least like the stuff I did, like this, the sense there's something I wanted to do on this album, which I've kind of been doing for years, but this was the first time it really came together for me. And in that sense, just for me as an artist, it was a milestone. And that was that like the use of synthesizers, pedal steel, and guitars all together pretty much in a lot of the songs to create those atmospheres that you're talking about. And obviously like I'm one person, so I can't play those three instruments at the same time, but like it a lot of it though will just sound like it is on the record, because like I pretty much always try to record stuff that I know I can do live, because I want it to be like, I've certainly done things on produced things in the past or worked on productions where it's like, oh, that's impossible, like that's just a studio recording, you know um but that's kind of the cool thing about doing things live too, is that there's things you'll hear in the live show that you won't hear on the record, and vice versa. There's other moments that happen. And I also like, like this album is very thematic, and there's a lot of hooks and a lot of melodies and a lot of parts for sure. It's definitely not like very much of an, at least on my part, I didn't want it to be like an improv album. And I'm going to try and play everything pretty much as I recorded it, because I'm in love with everything I recorded. I think it's really cool stuff and I want to play it. But I'm also a person that like, I don't like in a lot of situations, like I don't ever play the same thing twice,
Hmm.
because like, I don't mean like it's vividly different, but I don't like,
Sure.
like I want the moment to be happening, not to always be so rigid trying to just do something that's like strictly rehearsed. So but I do think like we practiced the other night, and I think it sounded like the record. So
Yeah, we'll have a few extra people on stage to help fill it out. We're probably gonna have another guitarist so that Jake can play some pedal steel. We're gonna have backup singers McKenna Esteb and Tessa Ritchie, who sang on the album, will be at the live show, which will be really great. That's not something we normally have at shows, but because it was such a fundamental part of the record, their backup vocals really added, I think, a lot to that kind of haunting, kind of immersive experience. So I'm hoping that will bring some fun elements to the show. And yeah, we'll be thinking about how to take everybody on a journey, so that it's something that feels singular and like a really cool experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Even though you are maybe a relatively new duo, I kind of get the sense of like it's an old soul. Like you guys are an old soul duo still, and from what I'm capturing here, um, what do you hope for? Cactus Moon, as far as it means from a long term perspective. Like, is there some bigger overarching vision that you're hoping to obtain from the duo here?
I mean, for me, I think like when we started hanging out and working on these songs, like sometimes when you start working with people, whether it's in music or like at a coffee shop or whatever, like there's weirdness, and there's no weirdness between us. Like it's very quick and easy, just like aesthetically clicked,
Mm-hmm.
like, and that's where this music, honestly, like, I'm not saying this because like Chelsea especially has put like a ton of work into like this release and stuff, but like in the grand scheme of things I've worked on, this was not difficult. Like it was easy. Like the creation of the music was not hard. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get hung up on anything. There was like, once I started doing it, it was just like smooth sailing. And that's partially because like, like because we share this sort of similar aesthetic, and because I think we're both just very open-minded to let the music be what it wanted to be and not try to control it too much. And also Chelsea trusting me to just like do what I thought was cool, which was rad, because it definitely made me feel like I could just like fire away. Whereas sometimes, in situations, people are a little more rigid about what they want, and aren't as open to like things that maybe I think are really cool but are kind of far out, and that's
Yeah.
my thing. Like I want to do the thing that's far out. I want to try the thing that's different, because that's what's, evolution is, and what's interesting, and that's the nature of creativity. But I mean, all this to say, to get back to your question, like I feel like we just, with this music, it was so easy, it was so effortless, that we just barely even like scratched the surface. And like
Mm-hmm.
just like the other night, and maybe like 2 weeks ago, I was at home and I was up late, and Chelsea was probably asleep, but I sent her like a series of like 10 videos of things I was just like blasting off about, like ideas I had. I was just kind of sitting in my moody studio, kind of just writing stuff. And it was just like, and that like gets me excited, because I'm like, God, we're just like, now that we sort of have like a foundation, there's just so much that I know I want to do, that's just like comes from a place of just like sonic curiosity, creativity. But as far as like anymore at this point in my life, like, you know, I don't really have like expectations for myself or for the group outside of making, music that's interesting and innovative, and hopefully makes people feel something when they hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. Yeah, I agree. It was very easy. I'm a starter, not a finisher, and Jake helped me finish this
Nice. Okay.
where it started. I feel like I brought these ideas to him that I didn't know how to move forward, and he took it 10 miles further. So I think that's just exciting in terms of collaboration, that we both bring something different to the table, and then together it's going to be stronger. And so we're both really into all different types of music. So I think the sky's kind of the limit in the types of things that we want to try and do. So yeah, I agree. It has been really simple and easy, because there's that trust, and I think that's critical for just keeping an open mind and letting things evolve as they will.
Yeah, no doubt.
More
Yes.
shows, more tracks, more records. That's what I want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and obviously the film soundtrack and the $1 million check to pay these mortgages would be pretty cool too.
absolutely. That's her
Waiting.
part, right? She's got to start that part. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, hey, as a final plug, if you could, can we give me the low on this album release party? Like, when's it going down again? Time, etc. Give me the 411 on it.
Yeah, it's August 24th at the Shrine. We're going to be opening up with Prairie Blue and Macy Matravers. Prairie Blue is Jake's other band. Some great players in that. Macy Matravers is a great singer-songwriter locally. So we'll kick that off on Sunday night at the Shrine, 7 p.m.-ish. It's going to be a Sunday, but come out anyway and get your week started right. It's going to be a fun time, and we're going to have vinyl on sale, T-shirts, all those things. So.
Yeah,
Nice.
put on your eyeshadow and polish your bolo tie, and prepare to experience some energy, I guess.
Yeah, that's what's up. It's awesome. Well, we'll be sure to include, details in the show notes here, as well as, where to catch these guys, where to go listen to their music, and all the things. So, Jake, Chelsea, appreciate you both a ton. Thank you so much for joining me today, and catch you soon, I'm sure.
Right on. Thank you so much.
You got it.